Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. This time we're going to be talking about something I know you're all interested in, which is the connection between Buddhist philosophy and travel.
Yeah, it's a rich area to explore.
Yeah. It seems like in a lot of ways travel, at least for me, is already kind of connected to Buddhist philosophy.
Yeah,
Like it pushes you out of your comfort zone.
exactly. The material that you sent actually emphasizes that travel, when you view it through the lens of Buddhist teachings, can really be a catalyst for transformation. It's about way more than just like hopping on a plane and seeing some sights, you know?
Right.
It's about shifting your perspective and even going so far as to challenge your deeply held beliefs.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just about seeing a new place, but seeing like yourself and the world in a new way.
Yeah.
And actually, speaking of seeing the world in a new way, one of the things that I found really fascinating in the source material was this idea of beginner's mind.
Ah, yes. Beginner's mind. That's Shoshin in Japanese, and it's a really fundamental principle in Zen Buddhism. It's essentially about approaching experiences with this sense of openness and curiosity and a willingness to just let go of preconceived notions. Like imagine a child seeing a rainbow for the first time. They're just filled with awe and wonder because their mind isn't, cluttered with assumptions and judgments.
Right.
It's about trying to cultivate that childlike sense of wonder that we might have lost as adults.
Right. I mean, because as adults, we've kind of seen things.
Right,
You know
right,
what I mean?
yeah.
So it's like trying to look at it as if it's the first time.
Yeah, exactly.
And that reminds me of, I went to Istanbul one time. I don't know if you've ever been there, but the Grand Bazaar, it's this massive marketplace. And I was just completely overwhelmed by like the sights, the sounds, the smells. And, I think in that moment, I was kind of forced to let go of my normal ways of perceiving things.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. You're forced to be present in that moment, just absorb the experience without any filters, and that's where the real learning and growth can happen.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So travel, especially when it kind of pushes us outside our comfort zones, can really kind of jolt us into that beginner's mind state, I think.
Right. And something else that came up in the source material that I thought was really interesting was this idea that travel can help us break down stereotypes and connect with our shared humanity.
Yeah.
How does that connect to Buddhist philosophy?
Well, Buddhism really emphasizes the interconnectedness of all beings. It teaches that separateness is ultimately an illusion. We're all part of this vast web of life.
Right.
And I think travel, by exposing us to different cultures and different ways of being, can help us really viscerally experience that truth.
So it's like less about us versus them and more about we.
Exactly. The material has this compelling example about witnessing the universal emotions of joy or sorrow or love in people from all different kinds of cultures, and it just reminds us that we all share these fundamental human experiences.
Right. And it doesn't matter where you come from.
It doesn't matter where you come from, right?
Yeah. I was in Peru one time, and I was in this tiny little village way up in the mountains, and I was talking to this shopkeeper. We didn't speak the same language.
Wow.
We came from completely different worlds.
Yeah.
But we were just laughing and using our hands and telling each other stories. We totally connected.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's the power of travel. You can transcend those superficial differences, you know. You tap into that shared human essence, and I think when we recognize our interconnectedness, we can cultivate greater compassion and empathy towards others.
Right, because we're all in this together.
We're all in this together, exactly.
This is all so interesting. Travel through, viewed through a Buddhist lens can really be a tool for like personal transformation. Yeah. But I'm also curious about the challenges that we inevitably face when we travel.
Sure.
Like Buddhism has a lot to say about navigating challenges, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It actually views obstacles as just part of the path of growth. There's that famous saying, the obstacle is the path.
Oh, yeah.
So instead of resisting challenges, Buddhism encourages us to embrace them, see them as opportunities for learning and transformation.
That's such a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know for me, when I travel, sometimes I get really frustrated when things don't go according to plan.
Yeah, I hear you.
Like one time I was flying and my flight got canceled and I was stranded in the airport for 24 hours.
Oh, no.
And I was so angry. But looking back, I realized I learned a lot about patience. I had to get resourceful, figure out how to make the best of the situation. And I had to let go of my need to control everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. And in that moment, you could have just completely succumbed to anger or despair, but you chose to adapt and find a way forward. You cultivated valuable qualities there that can serve you well in other areas of your life, too.
Totally, yeah. So it's like, it's not about avoiding the challenges, but learning how to navigate them and like use them as an opportunity to learn.
Exactly, yeah. And travel will throw us those curveballs sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's in those moments that we have this opportunity to practice resilience, flexibility, maybe even our sense of humor. It's like a training ground for developing a more balanced and adaptable approach to life.
Right. Like a bustle.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a great analogy.
Yeah. And welcome back to our exploration of Buddhist philosophy and travel.
We're really diving deep into how these two seemingly separate worlds intertwine so beautifully to encourage personal growth.
And one of the most powerful ways that happens is through this practice of letting go, which is such a key theme in Buddhist teachings.
Letting go. I'm really intrigued by that, especially in the context of travel.
Yeah.
You know?
You see, in Buddhism, attachment to things like material possessions or even our fixed ideas, our own sense of self, is actually seen as the root of suffering.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that, like clinging tightly to expectations or outcomes often leads to disappointment, especially when things don't go according to plan, which, let's be honest, happens a lot when you're traveling.
Exactly. And travel by its very nature disrupts our routines and comfort zones, so it forces us to confront those attachments head on.
Yeah, it's like being stripped bare of all the things we usually rely on for security and identity.
Exactly. And that can be unsettling at first, but it also creates this incredibly fertile ground for growth.
So it's about recognizing that true happiness and freedom come from releasing our grip on those things.
Yeah.
The things that we think we need.
The source material makes this brilliant analogy comparing a wise traveler to someone with no fixed plans and not intent on arriving.
Oh yeah, I remember that quote. A wise traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent on arriving. It's so evocative.
It really speaks to the power of embracing uncertainty, being open to those detours and unexpected turns that inevitably arise during a journey.
Because who hasn't experienced a delayed flight, a missed connection, or a sudden change of itinerary while traveling, right?
It's all part of the adventure, and often those unexpected moments lead to the most enriching experiences.
So instead of rigidly clinging to our itinerary, we can choose to kind of surrender to the flow of the experience.
Exactly. And that act of surrender, of letting go of control, can be incredibly liberating. It allows us to open ourselves up to new possibilities, new connections, new ways of seeing the world.
It's like making space for serendipity and magic to unfold.
And that's where the true beauty of travel lies.
This reminds me of this time I got totally lost while hiking in the Scottish Highlands. No cell service, no map, and no idea where I was going.
Oh, wow. That sounds a bit daunting.
It was at first, but I just took a deep breath and I decided to embrace the uncertainty. And you know what? It turned into one of the most memorable days of my entire trip. I stumbled upon these hidden waterfalls, ancient ruins, and had the most fascinating conversations with local shepherds.
There you go. By letting go of that need to control the situation, you opened yourself up to a whole new realm of experience.
Yeah, it was a powerful lesson, and I think it applies not just to travel, but to life in general.
Absolutely. Learning to let go of those attachments and embrace uncertainty is a skill that can transform every aspect of our lives.
So we've talked about cultivating a beginner's mind, breaking down stereotypes, embracing challenges. What other gems does the source material offer on this journey of personal growth through a Buddhist lens?
Another really crucial element is the cultivation of gratitude, a quality that's highly valued in Buddhist teachings.
I'm all ears. I know gratitude plays a huge role in our overall well-being, but I'm curious to hear how it relates to travel specifically.
Well, think about it. When we travel, we're exposed to a much wider spectrum of human experience. We see people living in vastly different circumstances, sometimes with far less than we have yet, often radiating this profound sense of contentment.
Yeah, I've definitely witnessed that myself. Traveling through Southeast Asia, I was really struck by the joy and generosity of people who had very little in terms of material possessions.
The source material paints this beautiful picture of this, contrasting the contentment of, say, an elderly couple sipping tea in a very simple setting with the often frantic pursuit of more that we see in our own culture.
It's a powerful reminder that happiness isn't necessarily tied to material wealth or external achievements.
Exactly. Travel can be such a powerful antidote to that feeling of lack that we often experience, It helps us shift our focus to what we already have and to really appreciate the abundance that surrounds us.
It's like a recalibration of our perspective, a chance to see the world through grateful eyes.
I love that analogy, and this shift in perspective can be incredibly liberating. It frees us from that constant striving for more and allows us to experience a deeper sense of contentment and peace.
So travel can be a catalyst for cultivating gratitude, not just for the new experiences we're having, but also for the things we already have in our lives.
Precisely. And that sense of gratitude can then ripple out into other areas of our lives, making us more appreciative partners, friends, family members, even more mindful citizens of the world.
This is all so insightful. It's amazing how travel, when viewed through a Buddhist lens, can lead to such profound shifts in perspective.
And there's still more to explore. Another key aspect we need to touch on is this realization of our interconnectedness.
Ah, yes, that sense of belonging to something larger than ourselves.
Yeah.
A theme that's woven throughout Buddhist teachings and often amplified through travel.
Exactly. And the source material provides this stunning imagery to illustrate this point. Imagine standing at the edge of the Sahara Desert, feeling the vastness of the landscape surrounding you.
I can almost feel it now. The wind whipping through my hair, the endless expanse of sand stretching out before me.
And in that moment, you might experience this profound sense of connection, not just to the natural world, but to all the people who have stood in that same spot throughout history.
Yeah, it's like feeling part of something ancient and timeless, the thread woven through the tapestry of human experience.
Exactly. And the source material uses another beautiful metaphor to describe this interconnectedness, comparing us to waves in an ocean.
Oh, right. We are all waves of the same ocean. It's such a potent reminder that despite our perceived differences, we're all part of this vast, interconnected web of life.
And travel can help us really viscerally experience this truth. Whether it's sharing a meal with a local family participating in a traditional ceremony, or simply exchanging smiles with strangers, we start to see those common threads that unite us.
It's like travel dissolves those artificial barriers we create between ourselves and others.
And in their place, we find empathy, compassion, a sense of shared humanity.
Wow, this conversation has been a whirlwind of insights. It's like we've embarked on our own inner journey while exploring the outer world of travel.
And we've only just scratched the surface. But before we dive into the final leg of our exploration, I think it's important to give our listeners some time to absorb all of these ideas.
You're right. We've covered a lot of ground in this segment, from letting go and cultivating gratitude to realizing our interconnectedness.
When we return, we'll delve into the practical applications of these principles and how we can integrate them into our daily lives.
So stay tuned, listeners, because the best is yet to come. Welcome back to our deep dive. It's amazing how these Buddhist principles can be applied to travel, right?
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. But I mean, now that we've kind of explored all these different ideas, it's like, how do we actually take these insights beyond our travels and integrate them into our everyday lives?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's easy to feel all inspired, when we're exploring new places, but how do we maintain that sense of openness, that beginner's mind that we talked about when we come back to our daily routines?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, one of the most valuable practices that we can cultivate is mindfulness, which we touched on earlier. Remember how travel really heightens our senses and encourages us to be present?
Yeah.
Well, we can actually bring that same awareness to our daily lives, even in seemingly really mundane activities.
So it's like, instead of just like rushing through my morning coffee, I could actually like stop it and savor the aroma, the taste, really feel the warmth of the mug in my hand.
Exactly. By paying attention to the details, we can start to appreciate the richness of each experience, however simple it may seem. Like it could be listening attentively to a friend, noticing the changing colors of the leaves, or, even feeling the sensation of your breath, just simple things.
Right, yeah, little things. But, I mean, what about those, inevitable challenges that come up in everyday life? We talked about embracing obstacles as opportunities for growth, but that's easier said than done when you're like facing a stressful deadline at work or having a difficult conversation with someone.
Oh, absolutely. It takes practice, but the principle of the obstacle is the path. It applies just as much to our daily lives as it does to our travels. So instead of getting caught up in frustration or resistance, we can try to see those challenges as opportunities to practice patience, resilience, maybe even creative problem solving.
So instead of asking, why me? I could ask, what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
Or how can I use this to grow?
Exactly. It's about shifting our perspective and finding the lesson or the opportunity that might be hidden within that challenge. And remember, in Buddhism, suffering often arises from our resistance to what is. So by learning to accept and work with those challenges, we can actually transform them into stepping stones, on our path to greater wisdom and peace.
Yeah, it's like taking that adventurous spirit that we cultivate while we're traveling and applying it to the ups and downs of everyday life.
Yeah, exactly.
But what about that feeling of interconnectedness? The
Yeah.
one that we get when we're traveling and meeting people from all different walks of life. How do we hold on to that when we're back in our own little bubbles?
Yeah, that sense of interconnectedness, I think it's such a powerful antidote to the isolation and the division that we see so much of in the world today. And we can actually nurture that by practicing kindness and compassion and understanding in all of our interactions, and it could be something as simple as smiling at a stranger, offering a helping hand, or just listening to someone with an open heart.
So it's about carrying that sense of shared humanity that we experience while we're traveling into our daily lives, recognizing that we're all connected, even in those ordinary moments.
Exactly. And by doing so, we not only enrich our own lives, but we actually contribute to creating a more compassionate and interconnected world. Remember that beautiful image of the waves in the ocean.
We may appear separate on the surface, but ultimately we're all part of that same vast, interconnected whole.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I have a whole new set of tools for approaching both travel and everyday life with more mindfulness, resilience, and a deeper sense of connection.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. And to our listener, I would just say this. Keep exploring, keep learning, keep growing. The journey never truly ends. And remember that you have the power to transform your experiences, both on the road and in your everyday life, by applying these principles of Buddhist philosophy.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Buddhist philosophy and travel. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring, and until next time, happy travels, both inward and outward.